This is the kind of story that makes the room go silent before the internet explodes. Because when Tamar Braxton broke down in tears, it wasn't over shade, money, or another reality TV argument. It was over something far darker. Something private. Something that should have never left a doctor's office. And according to whispers ripping through Hollywood right now, the betrayal didn't come from a rival, an ex, or a blogger chasing clicks. It came from inside her own family. Late-night texts started circulating. Then came the DMs. Then a voice note that fans swear they weren't meant to hear. And suddenly, one question was everywhere. Did Tamar's most personal health information just get exposed by her own sister? Social media went into meltdown mode. Twitter spaces erupted. Fan pages froze. And the Braxton name, once synonymous with unity, started trending next to words no family ever wants attached to them. Sources claim Tamar was blindsided. Cameras allegedly stopped rolling. Phones were slammed down. Tears weren't staged, they were raw, shaking, and uncontrollable. Insiders say Tamar kept repeating the same sentence through sobs. That was never yours to tell. And when Toni's name entered the conversation, everything detonated. Old tensions resurfaced. Past fights suddenly made sense. And years of "we're good now" started sounding like lies told to survive. Because if these allegations are true, this isn't just messy. This isn't just hurtful. This is a line crossed that can't be uncrossed. And once you hear what allegedly leaked, how it surfaced, and who may have known before Tamar did, you'll understand why fans are saying this might be the most devastating betrayal the Braxton family has ever faced. The fallout didn't begin on camera. It began in whispers. Quiet, frantic whispers that moved through group chats, backstage corners, and late-night phone calls before they ever reached the public. By the time the story hit social media, the damage was already done. Tamar Braxton wasn't just upset, she was reportedly shattered. And the reason had nothing to do with contracts, ratings, or sibling shade. It was about a boundary so sacred that crossing it changes everything. According to multiple insider accounts now circulating online, Tamar allegedly learned that deeply private medical information connected to her had been shared without her consent. Not hinted at. Not vaguely referenced. Shared. And when Tamar realized where the information may have come from, the room allegedly went cold. Because the name that kept coming up wasn't a blogger. It wasn't a producer. It wasn't a hacker. It was Toni. Fans say the shift was immediate. Tamar, who has always worn her emotions loudly, reportedly went quiet first. That kind of quiet that scares people more than yelling ever could. Then came the breakdown. Witnesses claim Tamar started crying so hard she couldn't finish her sentences. Her hands were shaking. Her voice kept cracking. And over again, she allegedly kept asking the same question. How could you do this to me? What made this explode wasn't just the idea of a leak. It was what kind of information was involved. Not gossip. Not rumors. Not something already public. This was alleged to be personal health information, the kind of information protected by doctors, laws, and basic human decency. The kind of information that can change how the world looks at you if it gets out. The kind of information that, once exposed, can never be taken back. Almost immediately, social media went feral. Twitter threads appeared within minutes, claiming they had receipts. Screenshots began circulating that fans insisted were proof something serious had leaked. TikTok creators went live, claiming they had been sent DMs from people close to the family. Some posts were deleted almost as fast as they went up, which only fueled speculation that lawyers were already involved. Then came the alleged voice note. Fans swear a short audio clip circulated briefly before disappearing. In it, a woman, believed by some to be Tamar, is audibly crying, saying, "I trusted you with my life." The clip cuts off abruptly. No names. No context. Just raw emotion. Enough to send the internet into a full spiral. What made this even more explosive is the history. Tamar and Toni's relationship has always been complicated. Love, rivalry, resentment, protection, it's all been there, on and off screen. They've defended each other publicly, and torn into each other privately. But this wasn't another argument about money or respect. This was something fans never thought would be weaponized: health. According to one alleged insider message that's been reposted thousands of times, Tamar believed that only a handful of people even knew this information. Doctors, lawyers, family. That's it. So when details allegedly started surfacing in spaces Tamar never authorized, the math became terrifyingly simple. Someone close had talked. And the closer that circle got, the harder it was to avoid one conclusion. People started re-watching old interviews with fresh eyes. Moments where Toni seemed tense when Tamar spoke about her struggles. Times where Tamar hinted she felt exposed or unsafe around her own family. Lines that once sounded dramatic suddenly felt prophetic. Fans pointed out how often Tamar has said she felt unprotected growing up, like her vulnerability was always treated as entertainment. Then came the confrontation rumors. Multiple accounts claim there was a private, explosive exchange between the sisters after Tamar found out. Allegedly, voices were raised. Accusations flew. One source claims Tamar directly asked Toni, "Why would you tell anyone that?" Another claims Toni denied it at first, then went silent. That silence, according to people who say they were present, is what broke Tamar completely. Because silence in moments like that doesn't feel neutral. It feels like confirmation. Within hours, the narrative shifted from "did something leak" to "who knew before Tamar did." Fans began speculating whether other sisters were aware. Whether producers knew. Whether this information had been floating quietly for years, treated as a storyline waiting to be activated. Suddenly, old family dynamics felt darker. Less dysfunctional, more dangerous. Celebrity reactions only poured gasoline on the fire. Several high-profile figures posted vague messages about protecting your health, family betrayal, and lines you never cross. None named Tamar. None named Toni. But fans connected the dots instantly. When someone tweeted, "Health is not tea," it went viral in minutes. And still, no denial. No immediate statement from Toni. No clarification. No, this is false. Just silence. And that silence became the loudest part of the story. Because if this were just another rumor, fans believe it would have been shut down immediately. Instead, everything slowed down. Posts vanished. Accounts went private. And suddenly, it felt like something real and serious was unfolding behind closed doors. Tamar reportedly withdrew. Public appearances were cancelled. A scheduled live was postponed without explanation. Fans noticed she stopped posting entirely. For someone who's usually vocal, expressive, and online, the disappearance felt alarming. And when she finally resurfaced briefly with a cryptic message about boundaries and survival, the internet lost its mind. This wasn't about embarrassment. This was about betrayal. And as the first wave of shock settled, a darker question began circulating in whispers. If this information was shared once, how long had it been used against her? In arguments. In power plays. In moments Tamar couldn't quite explain why she felt cornered. Suddenly, everything looked different. Because when someone exposes your most private truth, what happened next is where this story stopped feeling like gossip and started feeling like a full-blown implosion. Because once the shock wore off, Tamar's grief reportedly turned into something sharper, clarity. And with that clarity came questions nobody in the family was ready to answer. According to multiple alleged insiders, Tamar didn't just cry. She unraveled. Not in front of cameras, not for sympathy, but in private spaces where the truth had nowhere left to hide. Sources claim she started replaying old conversations in her head, remembering moments that didn't make sense at the time. Side comments. Awkward pauses. Looks exchanged between sisters. Things that once felt like normal family tension suddenly felt like warnings she ignored. One alleged text message that exploded across fan pages claims Tamar wrote, "So everybody knew but me." That single sentence ignited a second wave of outrage online. Because now the question wasn't just who shared the information, it was who sat on it. Who treated it casually. Who let it become leverage instead of protection. The internet immediately turned into a courtroom. Fans began lining up timelines, dissecting old episodes, interviews, and behind-the-scenes clips. Every moment where Tamar seemed defensive or emotionally volatile was reframed as someone reacting to pressure no one else could see. People started asking if Tamar's long history of emotional breakdowns were actually responses to being made to feel unsafe in her own family. Then came the alleged receipts. Several accounts claimed they had seen screenshots of messages where private details were discussed casually, almost dismissively, among people Tamar believed were her safe space. None of these screenshots have been publicly verified, but their descriptions alone were enough to send fans into a frenzy. Phrases like, "It's not a big deal," and "everyone already knows" triggered outrage. Because to Tamar, it was a big deal. It was her body. Her life. Her truth. Meanwhile, whispers began circulating that producers may have known pieces of this information long before viewers ever heard anything. That allegation changed everything. Because if true, it meant Tamar's vulnerability wasn't just mishandled by family, it may have been packaged. Treated like a future storyline, instead of a private reality. Fans began questioning whether certain explosive dinner scenes and confrontations were more calculated than they seemed. Whether accusations thrown on camera were designed to force Tamar into reacting emotionally without ever revealing the full context. Whether her pain was being mined for drama while the real issue stayed conveniently vague. The alleged confrontation between Tamar and Toni became the centerpiece of the chaos. According to one source, the exchange was brutal. No yelling at first. Just Tamar asking direct questions. Who did you tell? When? Why? The source claims Toni initially framed it as concern, saying she was just trying to help, or talking to the wrong person. But when Tamar pressed harder, demanding specifics, the explanations allegedly fell apart. That's when the meltdown reportedly happened. Witnesses say Tamar collapsed into tears, screaming that she felt violated, exposed, and humiliated. One person claims she yelled, "You don't help somebody by telling their business." Another claims she begged her sister to understand the damage, saying, "You don't get to decide what people know about me." What cut the deepest wasn't anger. It was dismissal. According to insiders, Tamar felt like her pain was being minimized, treated as an overreaction rather than a justified response to a massive betrayal. That dismissal allegedly reopened old wounds. Years of feeling like the emotional one. The dramatic one. The sister whose feelings were always questioned instead of protected. And that's when Tamar reportedly made a decision that shocked everyone. Sources claim she told those closest to her that she was done keeping quiet. Done protecting people who didn't protect her. Done absorbing hits so everyone else could look composed. Allegedly, she said, "If my truth comes out, it's coming out my way." That sentence alone sent shockwaves through the fandom. Because Tamar has always been the sister who speaks, but also the sister who pulls back when things get too raw. The idea that she might finally tell everything, without cushioning it for family unity, terrified people who knew what was buried. Social media reacted instantly. "Write the book" started trending. Fans flooded her comments telling her to expose it all. Others begged her not to, warning that once it's out, there's no undoing the damage. The Braxton fanbase split in half overnight, one side demanding truth at any cost, the other fearing the fallout would destroy the family forever. And still, Toni remained publicly silent. That silence was interpreted 1,000 different ways. Some saw guilt. Others saw legal advice. Others believed she was protecting the family by not responding. But to Tamar's supporters, the lack of a clear denial felt devastating. Because if nothing inappropriate happened, why not shut it down immediately? Then came the celebrity reactions, subtle but unmistakable. A well-known singer posted, "Your health is not a storyline." Another wrote, "Family betrayal hits different." A third tweeted, "Privacy isn't optional." None of them named names. They didn't have to. The message was clear, and the timing was louder than any statement. Behind the scenes, fans believe lawyers were already involved. Posts vanished. Old clips were removed. Accounts went private. The internet noticed everything. And when things start disappearing, people assume the truth is too dangerous to leave visible. Tamar's absence grew heavier by the hour. No lives. No jokes. No music previews. Just silence. And for someone who has always used her voice as armor, that silence felt like someone bleeding quietly. The most chilling rumor of all began circulating late one night. That Tamar had discovered this wasn't the first time her private information had been discussed without her consent. That this was just the first time she caught it. If that's true, it reframes everything. Every fight. Every accusation. Every time Tamar felt cornered and couldn't explain why. Suddenly, it all clicks into place in the most horrifying way possible. Because if your family knows something about you that the world doesn't, and uses it, that's not dysfunction. That's power. And according to insiders, Tamar is done letting anyone hold power over her ever again. But what she plans to do next? That's the part nobody is ready for. By the time the third wave hit, the story had outgrown the original leak. What began as whispered betrayal had transformed into something far more dangerous, a reckoning. Because Tamar Braxton, according to those closest to her, wasn't just hurt anymore. She was awake. And when Tamar wakes up, she doesn't just speak, she burns the house down with the truth. Insiders claim Tamar finally realized the most devastating part wasn't the alleged exposure itself. It was the pattern. The realization that her vulnerability may have been treated like currency. Like something people felt entitled to reference, hint at, or use as leverage when it suited them. That's when the tears stopped being just pain, and started becoming resolve. According to one alleged source, Tamar began making calls. Not emotional calls. Strategic ones. Lawyers. Publishers. Long-trusted friends outside the family. People who weren't invested in keeping the Braxton image intact. And when someone asked her if she was sure she wanted to go this far, she allegedly replied with one sentence that sent chills through everyone who heard it. "They already went too far without me." That's when the rumors about a tell-all stopped sounding like fan wishful thinking and started sounding real. Behind the scenes, family members reportedly panicked. Group chats went quiet. Then frantic. Then silent again. One insider claims someone in the family asked, "What if she says everything?" Another allegedly responded, "We should have never let it get here." That exchange alone, if true, suggests something far bigger than a misunderstanding. It suggests regret. Fans noticed subtle changes immediately. Toni's camp allegedly began scrubbing older interviews. Clips disappeared. Comments were disabled. Even neutral posts started drawing heavy moderation. It felt less like damage control and more like containment. As if everyone suddenly realized that once Tamar tells her version, the narrative won't be controllable anymore. And then came Tamar's return. No warning. No build-up. Just a sudden post that sent shockwaves through every corner of social media. A black screen. White text. 7 words, "My body. My truth. My voice." No tags. No names. No explanation. The internet exploded. Fans interpreted it as confirmation that something massive was coming. Comment sections flooded with support. Survivors of betrayal shared their own stories. Celebrities posted heart emojis and cryptic messages about strength and survival. And within minutes, "Protect Tamar" was trending alongside the Braxton name. What made this moment even more chilling is what didn't happen next. There was no rebuttal. No denial from Toni. No, "This is false." No, "Stop spreading lies." Nothing. Just more silence. And in this phase of the story, silence no longer felt neutral, it felt like fear. Because when someone prepares to tell their truth, the people who know it's coming often go quiet first. Insiders claim Tamar has been journaling obsessively. Writing down dates. Conversations. Who said what and when. Not out of bitterness, out of clarity. One source claims she said, "If I tell it, I'm telling it right." That doesn't sound like a rant. That sounds like preparation. Fans began speculating about the scope of what Tamar might reveal. Would it just be about the alleged exposure? Or would it open the door to years of emotional manipulation? Moments when her reactions were dismissed because people already had information she didn't know they were holding. Suddenly, the narrative wasn't about one incident, it was about control. The most unsettling rumor of all began circulating quietly among industry insiders. That Tamar had been warned not to speak before. That she had been told, gently or not, that certain topics were off-limits, for the sake of family unity. And if that's true, it explains everything. The explosions. The breakdowns. The sense that she was always reacting to something invisible. Because nothing destabilizes a person faster than knowing others are holding pieces of your truth you didn't give them permission to touch. Fans started revisiting Tamar's past meltdowns with new understanding. The crying. The anger. The moments where she begged to be heard, but couldn't articulate why she felt so unsafe. Suddenly, it all looked less like chaos and more like someone responding to a pressure they weren't allowed to name. And then came the final alleged twist. A source claims Tamar discovered that the information at the center of all this may have been discussed more than once, in different contexts, to different people, always framed as concern, never as consent. That realization reportedly broke her all over again. Because concern without permission is still a violation. And love that exposes you is not love at all. As this chapter closes, the Braxton family stands at a crossroads they may never recover from. Because if Tamar speaks, truly speaks, there will be no more pretending this was just sibling drama. No more hiding behind editing or explanations. No more minimizing her pain as too much. This isn't about forgiveness anymore. It's about ownership. And according to those closest to Tamar, she's no longer willing to let anyone else own her story. The question now isn't whether the truth will come out. It's how much of it will. Before you even think about clicking away, understand this. This story is still unfolding, and silence right now is not neutral. What you just heard isn't reality TV drama or recycled gossip. It's a moment where trust, family, and personal boundaries collide in a way that can permanently change how people see everything that came before it. If you felt your chest tighten while watching this, that's because this isn't entertainment, it's exposure. And exposure only matters if people are paying attention. Hit that like button if you believe no one's private health, trauma, or body should ever be turned into leverage, storyline fuel, or family ammunition. That one click tells the algorithm this conversation deserves to be heard, not buried. Drop a comment right now. Not tomorrow. Not later. Tell us where you stand, because the comment section is where patterns get spotted, timelines get connected, and truth starts surfacing. This community has caught things the blogs missed before, and if something else breaks, it'll break here first. And subscribe, urgently. Because if Tamar decides to speak again, if statements drop, if legal moves happen, or if the silence finally cracks, you do not want to be catching up after the fact. Missing the next update could mean missing the moment the entire narrative flips. This isn't just about one family. It's about what happens when boundaries are crossed and people finally refuse to stay quiet. Stay locked in. Stay alert. And don't let this story move forward without you watching every step of it.